I've decided to start a new life without you." The words shattered the air like glass. We were in the middle of a Celebration college graduation luncheon for our daughter, Amelia. The chandeliers sparkled above the private dining room, the smell of seared scallops and champagne hanging in the air, laughter still echoing from the previous toast. But now, silence devoured everything. Gregory, my husband of 28 years, stood, with a champagne glass still raised, his voice calm, almost rehearsed. He wasn't toasting Amelia. He wasn't praising her hard work or achievements. He was making a personal announcement, a selfish one. 50 people sat at round tables dressed in cream linen, mouths frozen mid-bite. Some guests looked confused, others horrified. A few I'd remember this, later looked as if they'd expected it. All eyes turned to me. I was supposed to crumble. That was the unspoken script. Cry, panic, shout, cause a scene, become the woman scorned. But I didn't. I smiled. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said calmly, lifting my glass ever so slightly. "My name is Bianca Caldwell. I'm 54. And at that moment, I knew exactly who I was and what I had to do. What no one knew was that I had been preparing for this for months." I reached into my handbag and retrieved a small, cream-colored envelope, unassuming but loaded. I walked calmly to Gregory's table, leaned in, and placed it beside his plate. "What's this?" he asked, blinking. "Something for you to read later," I said softly. I turned to our daughter. Amelia's graduation cap was still perched on her beautiful curls. Her eyes were wide, terrified. I kissed her cheek. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart," I whispered. "This day is still about you." Then I straightened my dress, nodded to the guests, and said clearly, "Please, enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." And I walked away. The heavy wooden doors closed behind me, cutting off the beginning of whispers. Outside, the Georgia summer heat wrapped around me like a cloak. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I loved Gregory so fiercely it scared me. We met in the early 90s, both fresh out of college. He was charming, spontaneous, always talking about changing the world with his big ideas. I was grounded, analytical, a little reserved, but I believed in him. More than that, I believed in us. He wanted to start a business right away, so I took a job as a junior analyst at a financial firm in Atlanta. I worked long hours, wore hand-me-down suits, skipped vacations. We lived in a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a shower that never got warm, but we were happy, or so I thought. I paid the bills, I bought groceries, I cleaned. I supported him while he chased dreams that never seemed to land. Gregory had a talent for beginning startups, speeches, grand visions, but he lacked the endurance to see them through. And so, every time he failed, I picked up the pieces. When we got married, I signed a prenup. Gregory insisted. Back then, he had a modest inheritance from his father and a fear of what failure might cost. I didn't care about the document. I believed in love. I thought, this is just a formality. Besides, I was earning more than him. Then came Amelia. Pregnancy was hard on me. 2 miscarriages nearly broke me before she arrived. But when she did, so tiny, so fierce, I knew it had all been worth it. I scaled back my career to raise her. Gregory, by then, had found another calling, consulting for small businesses. He made decent money, finally. I thought we were okay. I was the woman who ran the household, balanced the budget, organized every birthday party, and still showed up at PTA meetings in heels after a long day at work. I thought that was what good mothers and wives did. I silenced my dreams so he could chase his. Even when I wanted to open my own consultancy for women, helping them take control of their finances, I told myself, maybe later. After Amelia starts school, after Gregory finds stability. After. But later never came. Gregory never found stability, and the more I waited, the more invisible I became to him, to the world, even to myself. Until today, when he stood in that restaurant and announced his freedom, he thought I would collapse. He thought I was still that woman, the one who would absorb the blow and smile through the pain. He was wrong. The first red flag was a receipt. It was tucked between pages of Gregory's business ledger, an expensive dinner for 2 at a downtown steakhouse we hadn't been to in years. I thought maybe it was a client meeting, but the name on the reservation wasn't a client, it was Cassandra Wells. I stared at it for a long time. Cassandra? She'd been to our home before, younger than me by over a decade, always stylish, always laughing at Gregory's jokes a bit too long. I'd chalked it up to charm. Some women just have that effusive energy. Still, I asked Gregory casually over dinner. "Didn't you say you had lunch with Mark last Thursday?" He blinked, just a second too long. "Oh, yeah, Mark had to cancel last minute. I grabbed a bite with a colleague instead." It wasn't a big lie, but it was a lie. And I noticed. The second red flag came 2 weeks later. I'd logged into our joint account to transfer funds for Amelia's housing deposit. That's when I saw 3 separate transfers to an unfamiliar bank, each under $500. Small enough not to trigger alerts, but large enough to catch my eye. I didn't ask him this time. I waited. A pattern emerged sudden: client dinners, unaccounted absences, Gregory becoming more secretive with his phone. He began locking it when he showered, leaving it face down. He'd always been careless with devices before, sometimes asking me to check messages or emails. Not anymore. Something was wrong. But instead of confronting him, I played along. I smiled at breakfast, asked about his day, kissed him goodnight. I was gathering data. I wasn't ready to accuse him of anything, not without proof, not after 28 years of marriage. But deep down, I think I already knew. It was in the way he started sighing more those dramatic, guilt-laced exhales after dinner. It was in the way he avoided eye contact when Amelia mentioned future plancher dream job, a possible move out of state. And it was in the way he said, "we less and I more." I've always been good with numbers. While Gregory built castles in the clouds, I built spreadsheets. I tracked every cent of our income, expenses, investments. Not out of obsession, but out of habit, out of survival. I was the financial firewall of our family, quiet, invisible, constant. So when money began disappearing in small, deliberate trickles, I didn't panic. I started tracing. The first thing I did was request a paper copy of our last 3 months of bank statements. Gregory rarely looked at those, he left them to me. It didn't take long before I noticed the patterns. Transfers on Fridays, amounts just under $500, to an account ending in 7,483. I called the bank. They wouldn't give me the account holder's name, but I cross-checked the routing information. The account was under Cassandra's bank. Next, I checked credit card statements, charges from luxury restaurants, boutique clothing stores, and a high-end jewelry place downtown. One item caught my eye: a necklace from Blakely & Company, marked at $1,200. I remembered it. Cassandra had worn it at our Christmas party, the one where she brought her +1, who conveniently got sick and never showed. I made copies of everything. Then I began backing up Gregory's phone. He'd started locking it with a passcode, but he left it unattended one night while showering. I transferred everything: texts, photos, emails into an encrypted drive. I read things no wife should have to read. Messages about their secret weekend getaways, their dreams of a beachfront life once the dust settled. Photos from a cabin in Blue Ridge. Selfies of Cassandra in a robe that looked alarmingly similar to one missing from my closet. And then came the plan. Gregory had written it all out in a series of notes drafts of the speech he planned to give on graduation day. He wanted to shock with dignity, to leave me without a scene, to be admired for his honesty. He didn't think I'd notice. He didn't think I'd fight back. That was his greatest mistake. I wasn't interested in revenge. Not the petty kind, at least. I didn't want to scream at Gregory or throw his things out onto the lawn. I didn't want to become a headline or a meme or someone's dinner party story. I wanted precision, justice, leverage. I wanted to win with the calm efficiency of a woman who's been underestimated for too long. So I hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a specialist in high-net-worth divorce proceedings, someone who understood asset tracing and prenup litigation. Philip Anderson. Soft-spoken. Razor-sharp, efficient. I brought him a folder thicker than most cases ever see. Transaction logs, message transcripts, photographic evidence, voice memos. He flipped through it, impressed. "You've already done half my job for me," he said. "I've been doing this job for 28 years, I replied. "Only now it has a different purpose." He nodded. "We'll build a case for financial misconduct and adultery. The prenup supports you, but we'll need to act carefully. Timing is everything." I knew that. I wasn't about to expose Gregory too early. Not before Amelia's graduation. Not before I had everything lined up. So I waited. While Gregory fantasized about beachfront sunsets and custom cabinets in his new apartment with Cassandra, I moved money into my private accounts legally, transparently. I tightened every joint asset into a neat ledger. I made sure all college expenses were prepaid. I locked down retirement savings, froze new investments, and had every document notarized and secured. I also checked the prenup again, every clause, every footnote, and there it was, Section 12, a fidelity clause, still valid, still enforceable. Gregory, in his arrogance, had forgotten it existed. He had insisted on it 28 years ago, back when he feared I might one day leave him for someone more stable, more successful. Now, it was his undoing. I prepared everything, the filing, the timing, the conversation I would have with Amelia. I rehearsed it in my head, again and again. And then, 3 days before Amelia's graduation, I signed the papers. Filed them that same afternoon. Not for drama, for strategy. Let him deliver his speech. Let him feel in control. He had no idea the storm had already begun. Gregory thought he was in control. That was the most ironic part. For weeks, I had watched him rehearse his big moment without realizing I was watching. He practiced in the bathroom mirror, whispering lines like, "I never meant to hurt anyone," and, "Sometimes people grow apart." He changed the wording a dozen times, but the ending was always the same. He would declare his freedom, look noble, and walk away with dignity. And where better to do it than in front of family, friends, and colleagues in a day meant to celebrate our daughter's success? He wanted witnesses. He wanted attention. He didn't expect resistance. That afternoon, Amelia's graduation luncheon was beautiful on the surface. Sunlight poured through the windows of the private dining room. Waiters moved like choreography. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. Then Gregory stood up. Everyone keyed. He smiled, not at Amelia, but at me. And he said the words, "I've decided to start a new life without you." I watched the room freeze. Forks mid-air. Conversations dying mid-word. A couple of our friends exchanged glances. One woman at the back actually gasped. Gregory looked proud of himself, like a magician finishing a trick. But I had already seen the wires. I stood calmly, no tears, no outrage, just clarity. I placed the envelope beside his plate. "What's this?" he asked, a little off balance now. "Something for you to read later," I said. I turned to Amelia, kissed her cheek. Her eyes were wide, her mouth trembling. "I am so proud of you," I whispered. "This day is still about you." Then I addressed the room. "Please, enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." And I walked out. Behind me, I could feel it unraveling. The illusion, the control, the false narrative. Gregory had built his exit like a performance, clean, rehearsed, carefully timed. But he didn't realize that I had edited the script. I didn't go home right away. I took a drive through the old parts of town, past the first apartment Gregory and I had shared, the bookstore where we used to drink terrible coffee and dream out loud, the park where we walked with Amelia in her stroller. By the time I returned, twilight was settling over Augusta. The house was exactly as we'd left it that morning, except now, it felt different. The air inside was heavier, quieter. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and opened the closet. Sure enough, Gregory's suitcases were already packed, hidden in the back, zipped tight, like a coward's parachute. I sat down in the living room and opened my laptop. The documents I had prepared were there, the asset report, the transfer logs, the prenuptial clause summary, everything organized, bulletproof. Then the front door slammed open. "Bianca." His voice echoed through the hall, sharp, frantic, rattling the stillness like a broken bell. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. I let him find me. When he stormed into the living room, his face was flushed, the envelope crumpled in his hand. He looked nothing like the confident man who had spoken just hours earlier. He looked unmade. "What is the meaning of this?" he barked. I closed my laptop calmly and set it aside. "You served me divorce papers today? At Amelia's graduation?" "I thought the timing was appropriate," I replied evenly. "You wanted to start a new life. I'm just helping you begin it." "You had no right." "I had every right," I cut him off. "Just like you had the right to choose Cassandra. We all make choices, Gregory. Yours just come with consequences." He sneered. "That prenup expired years ago. Any lawyer would tell you that." I allowed myself a small smile. "Actually, no. Section 12. Fidelity clause. Still enforceable. It was your idea, remember?" His expression faltered. For the first time, I saw something behind the arrogance. Fear. "You didn't even talk to a lawyer before making this speech, did you?" I asked softly. Gregory didn't respond. I picked up my phone and tapped the screen. Then I played Itha's voice, recorded in our home office 2 weeks ago. "After the graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene." Then Cassandra's voice. "And she has no idea about the money?" Gregory again. "None. Bianca trusts me completely. That's her weakness." His face turned ghost white. "You recorded me?" "In Georgia, one-party consent. And it was in our home. I didn't record your private moments. I'm not cruel, Gregory, just smart." He stumbled backward, speechless. I stood, gathering my purse and a small overnight bag. "I'll be staying at Diana's tonight," I said. "What about Amelia?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "Don't you dare use her as a shield." I didn't respond to any messages that night except one. Amelia. Her texts had started pouring in an hour after I left the restaurant. "Mom, are you okay? Why didn't you tell me?" "Dad is acting weird. He's telling everyone you've lost it." I waited until I arrived at Diana's house before replying. "I'm okay. This isn't your burden to carry. Enjoy your day, sweetheart. We'll talk tonight. I love you." I knew Amelia would be hurt. Not just by her father's actions, but by the fact that I hadn't told her earlier. I had shielded her intentionally. I didn't want her final semester, her moment of achievement, to be poisoned by family drama. But lies, even protective ones, still carry consequences. She showed up at Diana's 2 hours later, still in her graduation dress, mascara smudged, hair pinned half up. She didn't knock. She just walked in, tears in her eyes. "I can't believe him," she said, collapsing into my arms. I held her tightly, like I used to when she was 5, and afraid of thunder. "Why didn't you tell me, Mom?" she whispered. "I wanted you to have your day," I said gently. "You earned it." She pulled back and looked at me, pain and confusion etched across her face. "Well, Dad took care of ruining it." We moved to the couch, and I told her everything. About the bank transfers, the messages, the cabin, the prenup, the recording. She listened without interrupting, jaw clenched, fists tightening in her lap. "I knew something was off," she finally said. "He's been weird, lately distant, jumpy. But I never thought. Not like this." I nodded, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're not responsible for his choices," I said. "You never were." Then the doorbell rang. Diana answered it. "It's Gregory," she called into the living room, "and he's not alone." We turned toward the entryway just as Gregory stepped inside with Cassandra. Amelia stood up. Her body went rigid. "What the hell is she doing here?" she asked sharply. Gregory looked nervous. Cassandra, worse, she looked like she wanted to disappear. "We just want to talk," he said quickly. "Bianca, can we be civil about this?" Before I could answer, Amelia stepped forward. "Maybe you should have thought about being civil before announcing your betrayal in public," she snapped. Gregory blinked. "Amelia, this doesn't involve you." "Like hell it doesn't," she shouted. "You tore this family apart on my graduation day. You lied. You cheated. You humiliated Mom in front of everyone." Cassandra reached out to Gregory. "Maybe we should go." "No," Amelia said, stepping between them and me. You don't get to run now. You showed up here, so you're going to listen." Her voice didn't shake. She was steel. And in that moment, I realized our daughter had chosen. Cassandra's eyes narrowed the moment Amelia mentioned the money. She turned to Gregory slowly, her voice tight. "You have a separate account?" Gregory shifted uncomfortably. "It's just a safety net. You know, emergency funds." "Emergency funds?" she echoed. "You told me you were broke, that the reason we had to wait to move in together was because you were tight on cash." Gregory stammered. That's not what I meant." Amelia crossed her arms. "He was funneling money out of our joint account, while telling me I had to take out student loans. Said we couldn't afford tuition." Cassandra's face went pale. She looked at Gregory like he was a stranger. "You said you didn't have savings, that everything was tied up in investments." "I didn't think it mattered," he blurted. Amelia laughed bitterly. "Didn't matter? You lied to both of us." I stood silently, watching it unfold. For years, I had been the one smoothing over conflict. Now, I let the silence do its work. Gregory tried to regroup. "Cassandra, let's just step outside." "No," she snapped. "You dragged me into this mess. You promised me a new life. You said you were starting over. You never said it involved stealing from your family." Gregory opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Diana walked in, arms crossed. "You should both leave. You've done enough damage." Cassandra looked relieved. "Gladly." She turned to me. "I didn't know about all of this," she said quietly. "If I had—" "You knew he was married," I said calmly. "That was enough." She flinched. And with that, she walked out, heels clicking across the hardwood like punctuation. Gregory hesitated. He looked at me, then at Amelia, then at the door. "Amelia, please," he whispered. But Amelia didn't move. "Go," she said coldly. "Just go." And he did. For the first time in his life, Gregory left a room, not with applause or attention, but in shame. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a message from Philip, my attorney. Emergency motion approved. Joint accounts frozen. His access limited to personal funds only. I stared at the screen for a moment before exhaling slow, steady. It had begun. Gregory could no longer use our shared finances. The money he had squirreled away would barely last him through the next month, especially after paying Cassandra's expenses and the deposit on the apartment he was so sure they'd be living in together. He texted me within the hour. "We need to talk. Please be reasonable. You're ruining me." I didn't reply. I had spent 28 years being reasonable. Now, I was being strategic. The preliminary hearing was set for the following Tuesday. Gregory showed up looking worse for wear-creased suit, red-rimmed eyes, no tie. His lawyer was a junior associate from a corporate law firm, young, nervous, unprepared. Mine was calm and focused. Philip presented the prenuptial agreement, the asset transfers, and the supporting evidence with clarity. The judge, an older woman with silver hair and no patience for posturing, reviewed the documents thoroughly. "This document appears valid," she said. "Section 12. Fidelity clause. Still enforceable." Gregory's lawyer attempted to object, but she shut it down. "The respondent's behavior, financial concealment, extramarital relationship, and planned public separation suggests clear breach of marital agreement," the judge ruled. She turned to Gregory. "Until discovery is complete, all joint accounts will remain frozen. The family home will remain in Mrs. Caldwell's possession. Mr. Caldwell may access only his personal account for living expenses." "Oh." Gregory's face was stone. His jaw clenched. "This is outrageous," he muttered. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you reread the agreement you signed." Outside the courtroom, he tried to follow me. "Bianca, please, let's be adults about this. 28 years together has to mean something." I paused, met his eyes. "It did mean something, until you decided it didn't." And I walked away, heels clicking against marble, his words fading behind me like an echo already too late. The news spread faster than I expected. I didn't post anything, I didn't gossip, I didn't make a scene. But people talk. In whispers over coffee, in texts between friends, In silent glances passed around charity galas and neighborhood barbecues, people began to put the pieces together. Gregory Caldwell, the charming entrepreneur, the family man, the toastmaster of every dinner party, was not what he seemed. A week after the hearing, Diana called me. "Have you heard?" she asked, voice tinged with a kind of ironic glee. "Heard what?" Cassandra moved out, packed her bags and left. I raised an eyebrow, even though she couldn't see me. "Already?" "She found out Gregory's business isn't doing as well as he claimed. Turns out those future investments were just smoke and mirrors." Of course they were. Gregory had always been better at appearances than substance. She continued, "Apparently, Cassandra told her friend Jennifer, 'I didn't sign up to be broke with a man who can't even keep a house.'" I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But Gregory hadn't just lied to me. He had lied to everyone. About who he was, what he had, what he valued. Now the mask was fanned, no one liked what they saw. The beachfront property fell through, his car lease was cancelled. A few close friends stopped returning his calls. One even forwarded me a voicemail of Gregory pleading for a second chance at a consulting contract. He was unraveling. His carefully curated life designed to impress and perform had no spine underneath. It was hollow, decorative. And without Cassandra to parade, and no money to mask the truth, Gregory Caldwell was just another man who got caught in his own lies. I had always dreamed of starting my own firm. Not just a business, but a space. A place where women could come not to be rescued, but to be equipped, informed, empowered. For years, that dream had been shelved, delayed, traded in for someone else's ambitions. But now, there was nothing in the way. No more "after Gregory settles," or "when Amelia graduates," or "when the time is right." The time was now. I rented a small office in a restored brick building downtown. It had scuffed floors, old windows, and a coffee machine that needed convincing, but it was mine. I named it Caldwell Financial Transitions. A quiet declaration that I was no longer just a wife or a mother, I was a professional, a woman who had walked through fire and come out the other side. My first clients were two women going through divorces of their own. One had been married to a doctor who drained their savings. The other had never handled finances in her life. I didn't just explain the numbers, I explained their power. "This spreadsheet," I told one of them, "is not just math. It's a map. It shows where you've been and where you're going." Word spread. Soon, I was booked solid. Not because I was the smartest in the room, but because I understood. Because I had been there. Because I could look a woman in the eye and say, "You will survive this, and not just survive, you will rebuild." End of free. Amelia called me one evening after her first day at her new job in Charleston. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she said. "You're helping people. You're helping yourself." "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me," I said. "No woman should feel financially trapped." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "You know what's ironic? If Dad had been honest from the beginning, he might have kept half of everything." I smiled, and I might still be stuck pretending I was happy. Helly too. The final hearing took place on what would have been our 29th wedding anniversary. A date Gregory had once promised would be our new chapter. And it was just not the one he imagined. He arrived in a wrinkled navy suit, alone. No Cassandra, no friends. Even his lawyer looked tired of him. He sat beside Philip, calm, composed. The courtroom was small, unadorned, quiet, just oak benches, soft lighting, and the sound of shuffling papers. But the weight of everything we had lived through sat between us like a stone. The judge reviewed the prenup one last time. "Section 12 remains binding," she said, "as does the asset division clause in the case of infidelity." Gregory didn't speak. He just stared ahead, his jaw locked, his eyes dimmed. Her ruling was simple, firm. Bianca Caldwell would retain full ownership of the marital home, 70% of joint investments, all personal retirement accounts, sole rights to any future profits from her business. Gregory would leave with his personal belongings, his dwindling personal account, and a business that, without my guidance, was steadily collapsing. He looked as though he might protest, but he didn't. Maybe he finally understood. When the session ended, he approached me outside the courtroom, his steps slow, uncertain. "Bianca," he said quietly. I turned, waited. "I made a terrible mistake." "You made a series of them," I corrected. A nodded. "No excuse, no defense. Is there any chance we could?" "No," I said, gentle but firm. "That door's closed." He looked at me for a long time, eyes glassy. "I hope you find happiness." "I already did," I replied. And I walked away, not from him, but from everything he had once represented. 6 months after the final hearing, Caldwell Financial Transitions had outgrown its tiny office. I moved into a larger space, still modest, but bright and open, with big windows that let in the morning sun. I hired 2 associates, both women rebuilding their own lives. We weren't just a business. We were a support system. Every week, I met women who had been told they weren't smart enough to manage money. Women who had been left in the dark while their partners controlled everything. Women who believed their dreams had expired with their marriages. I didn't just give them spreadsheets. I gave them language, confidence, control. Amelia visited often. Sometimes she sat quietly in my office just to watch. "I used to think strength was loud," she told me once. "Now I see, it can be quiet and powerful." Gregory's name came up less and less. He had moved to a small apartment across town, where he was still trying to salvage what remained of his business. Most of our former friends kept their distance from him. I never wished him harm. I just no longer wished him anything at all. One afternoon, after finishing a consultation, I stood by the window with a cup of tea. The city buzzed beneath me. My name was on the door. My choices lined the walls. My daughter's photo sat proudly on my desk. I had lost a marriage, but I had found myself. This was what closure looked like. Not vengeance, not regret, not even relief. Just peace. And purpose. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be living alone, running a business, and loving it, I would have smiled politely and thought, that's not my story. But now I know. The stories we live are not always the ones we plan. Sometimes they're the ones we survive and rewrite. My name is Bianca Caldwell. I'm 55 years old. For 28 years, I was someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's supporter. Now, I am still a mother. But I am also a mentor, an advisor, a woman who rebuilt her life brick by brick and discovered she was stronger than she ever imagined. Amelia calls me almost every day, sometimes to ask for advice, sometimes just to talk. She's thriving in Charleston, but she always tells me, "Mom, you inspire me." It used to be that I inspired her by being strong for the family. Now, I inspire her by being strong for myself. People sometimes ask if I'd ever trust again, if I'd ever love again. Maybe, but I don't need to, because I am not waiting to be chosen anymore. I am not waiting to be rescued. The woman who once handed her husband an envelope at a restaurant is gone. In her place stands someone sharper, wiser, and quietly unstoppable. When I look in the mirror now, I don't see a woman broken by betrayal. I see a woman reborn by truth. And that is more than closure. That is power. If Bianca's story moved you, or reminded you of someone you know, share this video. Leave a comment below. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? And don't forget to subscribe. You are not alone.